Welcome to this brief video from the ICGP explaining how trainees can use the dashboard powered by EPAs to plan their learning needs. In earlier videos, we have touched on how the EPAs, or entrustable professional activities, sit between the curriculum and the feedback tools, which is also where the learning occurs in the workplace. The EPAs, facilitated by the workplace tools, allow for rich and contemporaneous feedback to be discussed and delivered to trainees. The three tools currently available are the Performance and Practice Consultation, Performance and Practice Physical Exam or Procedure, and finally the Case-Based Discussion. Both the PIP-C and PIP-P require the trainer or person giving the feedback to have directly observed the event. In this video, we're going to look at how competence can be displayed on the dashboard and how, in turn, this can be used to plan learning needs. We have already touched on the concept of hills and valleys in earlier videos. And in this demonstration here, we can see how competence, if considered as multiple competencies, can be overlaid on each other, showing the dips and rising competencies over time. Generally, the trend is towards increased competence. However, to ensure this, specific sampling at times is needed. In this illustration, it is just 3 slots, but this could be many times over the course of a month or many times over the course of training for summative or progression decisions. We have to remember that the EPAs are just sampling a trainee at a certain time. They are taking specific looks at cases that are contemporaneous to that case and the learning that was going on at that time. By doing repeated sampling, it shows a rich picture of where the trainee is in their trajectory and ensures their competence moving forward. In the next section, we're going to look at the website on a desktop. I would like to note that all the trainee names in the following demonstration are pseudonyms. In this fictitious trainee's dashboard, we're going to look at 2 points in their trajectory. We're going to look at just after first year completing, before they move on to second year, and we're also going to look at just after third year completing, before they move on to fourth year. Please note that this trainee has done pediatrics, psychiatry, and medicine first year, and we will look at how this displays in the dashboard. And then finally, we will look at the latter stages when there's been more general coverage of the dashboard. This view is a desktop view or laptop view of the dashboard. This is the trainee's view when they log in. This is a fake trainee data set, and we're going to constrain ourselves to just their first year of training by sliding the timer back all the way to there. What this does is updates all the other viewports on the dashboard to just show submissions during that time zone. Please ignore the dates above, they're just there as generalizations. What we can do now is we can look at what's occurred to date. So if we remember, our trainee to date in first year has done pediatrics, psychiatry and ENT. And if we look at the EPAs, we can see that there's more completed for child health, more completed for adult chronic health, and a lot of therapeutics isn't completed, which would make sense with their exposure to date. Their next rotation is going to be the emergency department, and we can see they have less done in adult and elderly acute care. Let's have a look in more depth, and let's say that we are about to start our second year and we're going to be starting in the emergency department soon. If I select there, this now just highlights the areas that pertain to those EPAs, and by that color code we know it's moderate supervision, and we can see the time zones when they're completed here in more granular detail by month below. But let's say we want to look at the more rich text feedback. So we have already selected our zone here. Let's click on responses up here on the right. And now we have all this rich text feedback around that and around the kind of why they had those levels of entrustment. So you can see the statement, so the kind of description of the case. And as you recall earlier, we have advised you to make this memorable enough that you remember the case and you can key yourself in mentally of where that was. And then you can see the areas that were done well. And again, this is all just filler text. And you can see the areas for development and the action plan. And this would be an ideal time looking forward, if you can imagine yourself going into second year, to see what you could see in the emergency department for learning opportunities, and see them all there by the Wonka domains. Okay, so let's come back out for a moment and pretend that we're at the second point that we illustrated earlier, and we're going from third year into fourth year, and we're going to move the slider up to roughly 3/4 to full, so that's roughly where we would be. So now we're in the areas where there's more competence, and this is generally what we'd expect to see. Generally, it might be a little bit too linear down here in terms of there's no areas for moderate supervision, whereas in truth there might have been, but this is just for demonstration purposes. So now we can see there's kind of a more, what you could say, more kind of balanced view. Most EPAs have something in them, they're higher levels of competence. But let's say we're going into fourth year and we want to really make the best use of our time in training, and we want to see what we can do. So what we can do here is there's a different way of selecting the data, or a different way of seeing your previous feedback events. You can look at the areas for minimal supervision here by clicking on the bottom left. And this only highlights now the areas for minimal supervision throughout all the EPAs, and you can see it here again, highlighted over time. And again, if we go to responses here, and this is extremely powerful, this will collate all of the free text feedback from those events when you needed the minimal supervision. And here we can see how quickly you can, just before going to fourth year, say, oh yes, I must touch on that, or I must have a look at that again. So a really powerful tool that can allow you at the drop of a hat really to jump in, have a quick look at areas. Let's say, just to demonstrate again, let's say we looked at put it halfway through. We want to look at the areas for third and fourth year, for example. Now let's say we want to look at the areas for moderate supervision. We click down there on the bottom left, highlights all the EPAs that pertain to that. We click on responses up at the top right, and you can see it again, all the free text is coming through. So what we're using here is we're using the quantitative data, the scales or Likert as they're known, to allow you to drill down to the rich qualitative or text feedback very quickly and very powerfully. So if you wanted to look at, let's say, the areas for very high levels of competence, you could again look at that. In summary, this video has shown you how the EPA dashboard allows you to go back and look at your entrustment decisions along with the rich free text feedback associated with same. It should be noted, however, that you are not required to go back to all areas of less than independent practice to revisit those specific areas, and we would encourage you, along with the mechanisms described in this video, to consult the milestone documents that will be available in the coming months. These documents set out the competencies expected of you at specific points in your training and provide a powerful tool for planning your learning opportunities. To log on to the EPA dashboard or feedback tools, please proceed to icgp.ie/EPA. And to contact us in relation to any queries you might have, please email us at curriculum@icgp.ie.